7 Stoic strategies to become more valued in life. Do you want to be liked, or do you want to be valued? It is a question worth pausing on because most of the world rushes after the first and neglects the second. Being liked is easy, fleeting, and shallow. It comes with a smile, a compliment, a fleeting nod of approval that disappears as quickly as it came. But being valued, that is something entirely different. When a person is valued, their presence matters. Their voice carries weight. Their character is remembered long after their face is forgotten. The Stoics never cared to be liked. Marcus Aurelius did not sit on the throne of the Roman Empire seeking applause. Epictetus did not lecture in a crowded hall hoping for approval. Seneca did not write his letters to gain popularity. They sought to live in accordance with virtue, and in doing so, they became men whose worth could not be ignored. They may not have been liked by all, but they were valued by those who recognized integrity when they saw it. There is a danger in chasing after likes. To be liked is to be at the mercy of other people's opinions, and opinions change with the wind. One day they praise you, the next they condemn you. One day you are the hero, the next you are forgotten. To live for that kind of approval is to be enslaved. But to live for value, to live with a deep sense of purpose and principle, is to plant yourself like a rooted oak tree that does not bend when the winds of opinion howl. When we study the Stoics, we learn that being valued comes not from pleasing others, but from mastering yourself. A person who cannot govern their appetites, who speaks without measure, who breaks down in hardship, who demands repayment for every kindness, such a person cannot be deeply valued. But one who disciplines himself, who chooses words with care, who bears pain with dignity, who gives freely, who remains calm amidst storms, who lives by principle and who honors others, such a person becomes a treasure to all around them. Think of Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by wars, betrayals, disease, and the weight of ruling the world's largest empire. He could not possibly please everyone, and he knew it. Yet his soldiers valued his endurance, his family valued his devotion, and his people valued his justice. He was not remembered for being a charming personality, but for being a man of character. Even today, centuries later, his words guide us because his worth was not based on applause, but on virtue. The question for you, then, is whether you are content with being liked, or if you are willing to walk the harder path of becoming valued. The first is easy. Smile often. Say what people want to hear. Never confront. Never stand for anything that risks disapproval. But in the end, that kind of life leaves no lasting impression. The second path is demanding. It requires discipline, honesty, courage, patience, and selflessness. Yet it is this path that builds a reputation of true worth, one that survives long after the noise of fleeting approval fades away. To be valued is not about arrogance or craving recognition. It is about living in such a way that your life naturally commands respect. A Stoic does not beg for validation. He simply embodies virtue, and value follows. If you live with integrity, people will turn to you in moments of crisis. They will seek your counsel when the noise of the world grows confusing, and they will lean on your strength when their own falters. In this journey, our aim is not to win applause, but to cultivate a life so anchored in virtue that being valued becomes inevitable. And this is what I will show you. 7 strategies the Stoics practiced. 7 ways of living that elevate you from a person chasing after approval to a person whose presence, whose voice, whose character is deeply treasured. If you are willing to embrace these, you will find yourself walking a path not to shallow popularity, but to lasting worth. This is the Stoic promise, that by turning inward, disciplining your soul, and aligning yourself with reason and virtue, you do not merely live, you become a person valued by others, not because you sought it, but because you lived as you should. And that is the kind of value that no passing trend can take away. The first strategy is the foundation of all the others: self-discipline. Without it, every other quality collapses under the weight of inconsistency and weakness. Discipline is the art of governing yourself, of standing guard over your desires, impulses, and habits. The undisciplined person is carried away by every craving and every passing mood. They want to be valued, yet they cannot even trust themselves to do what they say. How then can anyone else trust them? The Stoics understood that discipline is not punishment, it is liberation. Epictetus, born a slave, taught that freedom does not depend on chains or laws, but on mastery over oneself. You can be in a prison and still be free if your mind is disciplined. You can sit on a throne and still be enslaved if you are a servant to your passions. A disciplined man is not at the mercy of appetite or fear, but instead guides his actions by reason. Such a man is valued because he is dependable. Think of the soldier who remains steady while the rest of the army panics. His composure inspires confidence. Or consider the craftsman who never cuts corners, who disciplines himself to finish each detail with excellence. His work is sought after. Or imagine the friend who shows up on time, who keeps his word, who disciplines his desires so that he can be fully present with you. You value him because his discipline makes him reliable. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations about rising each morning with purpose. He reminded himself that he would meet people who are selfish, arrogant, or deceitful, yet he must not be like them. That requires discipline. To rise early when your body craves more sleep, to endure the duties of the day when your mind longs for ease, to remain patient when your temper urges you to snap. This is discipline in action. And it is precisely this quality that makes others respect you, for they know you are not tossed around like everyone else. In our own lives, self-discipline begins with small practices. Wake when you said you would wake. Do the work you said you would do. Control your tongue when anger tempts you to lash out. Decline pleasures that weaken your resolve. Each act of discipline builds inner strength, and over time it becomes clear to others that you are not like the masses who live at the mercy of their urges. People value discipline because it creates trust. An undisciplined man cannot be trusted with responsibility. He will promise and then forget. He will begin and then abandon. He will be swept away by pleasure and fear, and others will suffer for it. But a disciplined man, though imperfect, can be counted on. And trust is the foundation of being valued. Consider Epictetus again. Though born in bondage, he lived with such discipline of mind and conduct that even emperors would later study his words. He could not choose the household he was born into, but he could choose to master his thoughts, his reactions, his character. That discipline turned a man with no earthly power into a teacher valued for centuries. Our culture often confuses discipline with denial, as if it robs life of joy. In truth, discipline sharpens joy by removing what is trivial. The man who disciplines himself not to indulge in every pleasure finds deeper satisfaction in the pleasures he does allow. The one who disciplines his mind against distraction experiences the joy of focus and accomplishment, and others value him for his clarity, his steadiness, his example. To practice this Stoic strategy, begin by setting boundaries for yourself. Decide what is within your control and take command of it. Do not waste energy on what lies beyond your power, but do not excuse yourself from what you can master. Create habits that strengthen you. Rise early, exercise the body, read deeply, write reflectively, speak thoughtfully. Each habit is a brick, and with time you will have built a fortress of discipline that others cannot help but admire. Discipline is not about impressing others. It is about aligning yourself with nature, about being the kind of person who fulfills his purpose without complaint or hesitation. Yet the fruit of this is that others will value you, for they will see in you something rare: stability. In a world of inconsistency, the disciplined man stands out as a beacon. People will turn to him because they know he is not ruled by whim, but by reason. So, the first step toward becoming more valued is not to demand recognition or seek favor, but to master yourself. Govern your appetites, order your days, train your body and mind as a soldier trains for battle. Then, when the test comes, you will stand firm, and others will know you are a person of worth. Self-discipline is the silent proof of character, and it speaks louder than any words could. If discipline earns trust through action, then the weight of your words determines how deeply that trust takes root. The Stoics believed that language is not to be wasted. Words are instruments of truth, not decorations for vanity. To speak less but mean more is to practice a kind of verbal discipline that multiplies your value in the eyes of others. Seneca once wrote that speech should be measured, not poured out. He knew that the more a person talks, the more likely they are to betray thoughtlessness, exaggeration, or falsehood. The one who speaks sparingly, however, forces others to pay attention. His words are not common coins, but rare treasures. People listen because they know he does not waste their time. Consider how often in daily life people chatter without weight. They fill silence with noise, repeat opinions they do not hold deeply, and say what pleases the crowd rather than what is true. This kind of speech does not make a person valued. It makes them forgettable. But think of the man who sits quietly, listening more than he speaks, and then at the right moment delivers a sentence that clarifies confusion, resolves conflict, or lifts the spirit. That man is valued because his words carry the force of thought and sincerity. The Stoics practiced silence not out of shyness, but out of wisdom. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, was known for long pauses before responding. He weighed his words as carefully as a merchant weighs gold. Epictetus instructed his students to practice restraint in speech, reminding them that nature gave us 2 ears but only 1 mouth, suggesting that listening should be done twice as often as speaking. To speak less and mean more is to cultivate both humility and clarity. Think about the impact this has in your relationships. A friend who interrupts constantly, who drowns conversations with endless chatter, may be tolerated but not deeply valued. On the other hand, a friend who listens with genuine attention and when he speaks does so with honesty and care becomes someone people treasure. In times of trouble, it is not the talkative one who is sought, but the one whose words have proven steady and meaningful. Even in leadership, the principle holds true. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not for display, but for himself. Yet when he did speak as emperor, his words carried immense power because they were born out of reflection. In moments of crisis, his calm and precise speech anchored his armies and reassured his people. He did not indulge in empty rhetoric. He chose words that guided action. For us, practicing this strategy begins with a simple habit. Pause before speaking. In that pause, ask yourself, does what I am about to say add value? Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it fails these tests, silence may be the wiser path. By restraining your tongue, you give weight to your words, and others will recognize that when you speak, you mean it. Another practice is to write. The Stoics were great writers, and for good reason. Writing clarifies thought. Seneca's letters remain valuable not only because of their wisdom, but because he honed his thoughts on the page before sharing them. In the same way, journaling forces you to refine your ideas so that when you do speak, you have already sifted out the excess. There is also a deeper Stoic principle at work here. To speak less and mean more is an act of self-mastery. It means you are not controlled by the urge to be noticed, the anxiety to fill silence, or the vanity of showing off knowledge. Instead, you trust that your worth lies in virtue, not in the sound of your voice. That quiet confidence is itself valued. Over time, people will come to see you differently. They will lean in when you open your mouth. They will remember your words because you did not waste them. They will recognize that your speech reflects thought, and thought reflects character. And character, more than charm, is what makes a person valued. So let your words be like medicine, rare, measured, and healing. Do not scatter them like seeds on hard ground, but plant them carefully where they will take root. In this way, your silence will command attention, and your words, when they come, will be remembered. This is the Stoic way: to speak less, to mean more, and thereby to become a person whose voice carries the weight of truth. Life will test you with hardships, and it is in those moments that your true worth is revealed. Anyone can appear virtuous when the sun is shining and the path is smooth. But when storms come, when pain pierces, when betrayal wounds, when loss strips you bare, then the world sees who you really are. To endure hardship with dignity is one of the most powerful Stoic strategies for becoming valued, because it proves that your strength is not borrowed, but your own. Marcus Aurelius knew this truth intimately. During his reign, he faced endless wars on the empire's borders, a devastating plague that killed millions, and political treachery even within his own family. Yet, in his meditations, he repeatedly reminded himself to accept these hardships as natural, to endure them as part of the role assigned to him by the universe. He did not cry out for pity or curse his fate. Instead, he sought to act justly, to maintain his composure, and to treat adversity as the forge of character. His example gave strength to those around him, and it is why we still value his words centuries later. People instinctively value those who endure with grace. Consider two individuals, one who collapses at the first sign of difficulty, complaining loudly, spreading despair, infecting others with fear, and another who, though clearly in pain, carries themselves with quiet strength, offering reassurance to others, holding firm to principle. The first may be pitied, but the second will be valued. Why? Because in a world where suffering is unavoidable, we all long for examples of courage. We need to see that endurance is possible, that pain need not define us. The Stoics practiced what they called amor fati, the love of fate. This did not mean passively accepting cruelty or injustice without action. It meant embracing the reality of hardship as part of the natural order, as opportunities for the exercise of virtue. To endure sickness with patience, to endure loss with gratitude for what was once possessed, to endure insult without retaliation, these are not signs of weakness, but of inner mastery. Epictetus, who was born a slave and walked with a crippled leg, told his students not to pray for events to happen as they wished, but to wish for events to happen as they did. He endured chains, poverty, and physical pain, yet his spirit was unbroken. He became valued not despite his hardships, but because of the way he bore them. His dignity in suffering taught more than 100 comfortable speeches ever could. In our own time, hardship may look different, but it presses on the soul just the same. A failed career, a broken relationship, a serious illness, financial collapse, betrayal by a trusted friend. These are the modern arenas where Stoic endurance must be shown. And it is in those arenas that you have the chance to prove your worth. People will not remember how loudly you celebrated in times of prosperity, but they will remember how you stood when the ground gave way beneath you. To endure hardship with dignity does not mean denying your pain. The Stoics never taught us to be stone. Marcus admitted his weariness, Seneca spoke of his fears, Epictetus acknowledged the sting of suffering. But they also taught that pain need not corrupt the soul. You may grieve, but you do not need to collapse. You may struggle, but you do not need to surrender your integrity. You may suffer, but you can suffer nobly, and in that nobility lies immense value. Imagine the example this sets for others. A parent who endures hardship with dignity teaches their children resilience. A leader who endures hardship with dignity steadies the hearts of their followers. A friend who endures hardship with dignity becomes a source of inspiration. The value of such endurance extends far beyond the individual. It ripples outward, strengthening all who witness it. To cultivate this endurance, practice seeing adversity as a test. Ask yourself, what virtue is this moment calling forth? Patience? Courage? Humility? Self-control? Every hardship is an opportunity to practice what is good. When insulted, practice forgiveness. When exhausted, practice perseverance. When deprived, practice gratitude for what remains. Slowly, you transform suffering from an enemy into a teacher. It is a paradox, but one that the Stoics understood well. The more gracefully you suffer, the more deeply you are valued. Not because people enjoy watching you in pain, but because they recognize in you a strength they aspire to. They see in you the embodiment of what they hope to become when their own time of trial comes. And this is why enduring hardship with dignity is a strategy for lasting worth. Anyone can shine when the sky is clear, but the one who shines in the storm, who remains upright when the world crumbles, becomes a light that others never forget. Such a person is not merely liked, not merely admired, but treasured. Their endurance is a gift, a living proof that dignity can outlast suffering, and that the human spirit, rightly ordered, is stronger than fate itself. There is a reason why selfless generosity has always been revered across cultures and times. To give without expecting return is to free yourself from the chains of transaction and to step into the realm of true virtue. The Stoics insisted that we are not born for ourselves alone, but for the whole. They taught that every human being is part of a greater body, and that what benefits one limb benefits the whole. To live by this truth is to become someone valued, because people instinctively honor the one who gives freely without keeping a tally of debts. In our world, much of what is called generosity is little more than disguised trade. We give with one hand and extend the other, waiting to receive. A gift is offered, but the giver secretly expects gratitude, praise, or repayment in kind. This kind of giving is transparent and shallow, and it never earns lasting value. True generosity, the Stoic kind, is different. It flows naturally, without calculation. It is not measured by what you gain in return, but by the virtue it expresses in the act itself. Seneca wrote about the joy of giving, reminding us that a gift should not enslave the recipient with obligation, but liberate them with love. He argued that the highest form of giving is done quietly, without advertisement, without making the recipient feel small or indebted. When you give with such purity, you embody virtue, and people come to value you not for what you can do for them, but for who you are. Think of how this works in practice. A leader who gives credit to others instead of hoarding it becomes deeply valued by their team. A friend who gives time and attention without distraction becomes someone others hold close to their hearts. A stranger who offers kindness without expectation of recognition can change a life in ways they may never even know. The act of giving itself creates worth because it reflects a soul that has risen above selfishness. Epictetus, reflecting on the nature of community, said that the universe is a great city and we are its citizens. As citizens, we are bound to contribute to the common good. To give without expectation is to fulfill this role, to serve the whole without complaint. Such a life may not make you rich in possessions, but it makes you invaluable in character. This principle applies beyond material generosity. You may not have wealth to give, but you have presence, patience, kindness, wisdom. You can give encouragement to the weary, guidance to the lost, forgiveness to the offending, attention to the ignored. These gifts, though intangible, often mean more than gold, and because they are given freely, they inspire deep gratitude and respect. To live this way requires a shift in perspective. You must stop seeing generosity as a means of gaining influence or securing loyalty. You must learn to see it as an end in itself, a way of aligning yourself with virtue. Ask yourself, am I giving to serve or to receive? Am I offering from abundance of spirit, or am I secretly demanding something in return? The Stoics would urge you to cut away every trace of selfish calculation, for only then does giving become pure. The paradox is that those who give without expecting return are often the ones most valued in the long run. People sense authenticity. They know when kindness is genuine and when it is bait. A person who gives without hidden motives creates bonds of trust and affection that cannot be manufactured by manipulation. They become pillars in their families, their communities, their friendships. Their value is not begged for, it is freely granted. Even in times of scarcity, this principle holds. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often to serve others, even while exhausted, even when unappreciated. He saw himself as part of a larger whole, and so his duty was to contribute. If the Emperor of Rome, burdened with endless troubles, could still practice this selfless giving, what excuse have we to withhold our kindness? To practice this strategy, start small. Offer your time to someone who needs a listening ear. Share knowledge without demanding recognition. Give praise without envy. Offer forgiveness even when none is asked for. Over time, this posture becomes a way of life. You stop keeping score. You stop expecting repayment. You give because it is good, and that goodness radiates outward, drawing others to value you more deeply. In a society obsessed with transactions and gain, the one who gives without expectation stands apart. That person is rare, and rarity creates value. More importantly, such a life is its own reward, for to live generously is to live freely. You are no longer enslaved to the praise or gratitude of others. You act according to virtue, and virtue itself is enough. Yet, as with all Stoic strategies, the paradox is that by abandoning the desire to be valued, you become valued more than ever. People will not only appreciate your gifts, but will honor the spirit behind them. They will recognize in you a character worth cherishing because you embody the timeless truth that the more we give without seeking return, the more we ourselves become a gift to the world. Chaos is the natural state of the world. Events tumble into one another, people clash, accidents happen, plans collapse, fortunes rise and fall. Most people are swept away in this storm, reacting with panic, anger, fear, or despair. But the one who cultivates inner calm becomes like a rock in the middle of the torrent, unshaken by the current. That calmness is rare, and because it is rare, it is deeply valued. People instinctively seek out those who can keep their composure when everything else seems to be falling apart. The Stoics understood that while we cannot control external chaos, we can always govern our inner response. Marcus Aurelius ruled in times of constant upheaval, yet he wrote to himself that the mind has the power to remain undisturbed if it chooses. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This was not merely a comforting phrase, it was a way of living. Marcus faced plagues that decimated populations, rebellions that threatened the empire, and betrayals from those closest to him. Through it all, he disciplined his soul to remain calm, reasoning that panic helps no one, but composure provides clarity. When you practice inner calm, you become a source of stability for others. In a household, it might be the parent who remains steady when money runs out or illness strikes, giving children a sense of safety despite circumstances. In a workplace, it might be the leader who stays focused during a crisis, refusing to lash out or despair, and by that steadiness, guiding the team through turbulence. In friendship, it might be the companion who listens with patience instead of amplifying drama, who offers perspective when emotions run wild. These people are valued precisely because they offer what the world craves: peace amidst disorder. But calm is not natural, it must be cultivated. The Stoics trained themselves daily. They journaled their thoughts, practicing self-reflection to purge unnecessary anxiety. They used reason to remind themselves that most fears never come to pass, and even if they do, they are survivable. They practiced controlling their breathing, using the body as a gateway to a steady mind. They repeated truths to themselves. This too will pass. Pain is endurable, death is natural, loss is inevitable. By rehearsing these truths, they built a fortress within that no external chaos could breach. Epictetus told his students that when insulted, they must pause and ask whether the insult truly touched them or only their pride. If only the pride was injured, then why grow agitated? Likewise, when fortune turns sour, the Stoic does not cry that the universe has wronged them. He remembers that fortune never promised permanence. By anchoring the mind in reason, he keeps the waters of the soul calm, even when storms rage outside. The modern world gives us endless chances to practice this. Technology delivers constant streams of bad news, fear and outrage. Social media amplifies anger and envy. Economic shifts bring insecurity. Families fracture, politics divide, health crises erupt. To remain calm in such a world is not passive resignation, but a radical strength. Those who refuse to be drawn into hysteria are noticed, and their steadiness is valued because it reassures others that sanity is possible. Inner calm also allows you to see clearly. Panic narrows vision, but tranquility widens it. A calm mind makes better decisions, sees opportunities others miss, and prevents unnecessary mistakes. This alone makes such a person valuable. In war, it is the commander who thinks clearly under fire who wins. In business, it is the leader who doesn't crumble under pressure, who steers the ship to safety. In daily life, it is the friend who doesn't amplify fear, who becomes the anchor. To practice cultivating this calm, begin by training yourself in small irritations. When someone cuts you off in traffic, remain steady. When delays upset your schedule, breathe and remind yourself that anger does not move the clock forward. When a conversation grows heated, resist the urge to escalate. Choose silence or measured words instead. Each small victory over agitation strengthens your capacity for calm in greater trials. Over time, you will find that this calm not only benefits you, but also elevates your place in the eyes of others. They will value you because you do not add fuel to the fire, but instead bring water. They will value you because in your presence they feel less anxious, less afraid, less confused. They will come to you for advice, for perspective, for support. You will be like the harbor that ships return to after the storm. The Stoics never sought to escape the chaos of life. They knew it was inevitable. What they sought was to create stillness within, a space untouched by the turmoil of events. If you can cultivate this inner calm, you will be valued not because you are extraordinary in status or wealth, but because you provide what is most rare and most needed, a steady soul in an unsteady world. There is a difference between living by principle and living by opinion. Opinions shift with the seasons, with the moods of the crowd, with the winds of convenience. Principles, when rooted in truth, endure. The Stoics insisted that a life of worth is one anchored in virtue, not in popularity. To live by principles rather than popular opinion is to build a foundation others can trust. It is to become valued not for flattery or compromise, but for constancy. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often that he was born to do the work of a human being, not to be swayed by applause or censure. He wrote that it should not matter if people misunderstand you, so long as you act with justice, self-control, courage, and wisdom. For him, the measure of a man was not whether he pleased the crowd, but whether he aligned with reason and virtue. And because he lived this way, his memory has outlasted the fleeting approval of his time. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, refused to bend his philosophy to please his audience. His teachings often went against the grain of the culture, which prized wealth, pleasure, and influence. He taught instead the pursuit of virtue, the discipline of desire, the equality of all souls. These ideas did not win him mass popularity, but they earned him lasting respect. People valued him not because he told them what they wanted to hear, but because he spoke what was true. The danger of living by popular opinion is that you become inconsistent. Today you bend one way, tomorrow another, depending on who is watching. Such a person cannot be trusted, for no one knows where they will stand when pressure mounts. But the one who lives by principle is predictable in the best sense. You may not always like their answer, but you know it will be guided by integrity. This reliability makes them deeply valued. Consider the parent who tells their child the truth even when it is uncomfortable, compared to the parent who always tells the child what they want to hear. The latter may be liked in the moment, but the former is valued for shaping character. Or think of the colleague who refuses to participate in dishonesty at work, even when it costs them favor. That person may lose immediate popularity, but in the long run, their principled stand becomes a source of respect. Living by principles requires courage because it often sets you against the crowd. The Stoics warned that the multitude is not always right. Seneca wrote that if many people are doing something, it is often a reason to avoid it, not to join it. He urged his readers to measure actions not by their commonness, but by their alignment with reason and virtue. To stand firm while others waver is not easy, but it is precisely this firmness that creates value. In your own life, you can begin by naming your principles. What do you stand for? What virtues will you never betray, even if it costs you? Write them down. Carry them in your mind. Then, when a situation arises that tempts you to compromise, return to those principles as your compass. This gives you strength, for you no longer drift on the sea of opinion. You walk on solid ground. People may not always applaud you for this. At times they may resist, mock, or even despise you. But even then, they will value you, though they may not admit it. Deep down, everyone craves constancy. Everyone longs to know that there are souls who will not sell out, who will not betray themselves for approval. When you live by principle, you become that kind of soul. Over time, the value of such a life multiplies. You become the one others trust with secrets, the one they seek for guidance, the one they lean on in crises. Not because you told them what they wanted to hear, but because you told them what they needed to hear. not because you followed the crowd, but because you stood apart. The Stoic does not live for applause, and yet applause often follows him in the end because people come to recognize the rare strength of consistency. To live by principles in a world driven by popular opinion is to become a lighthouse on a stormy coast. Others may resist your light, but when the waves crash and the fog thickens, they will look for it, and when they find it, they will value it beyond measure. So let your principles guide you, not the clamor of voices around you. Stand firm, even if you stand alone. In the end, it is not the crowd's fleeting cheers that matter, but the quiet, enduring respect earned by a life of integrity. This is how you become valued, not by following opinion, but by embodying truth. There is a paradox woven into the heart of life. If you wish to be valued, you must first learn to value others. Respect is not a one-way road. Dignity is not reserved for yourself alone. The Stoics taught that every human being, no matter their station, shares in the same divine spark of reason. To recognize this spark in others is to treat them with a kind of reverence that elevates both you and them. And those who live this way become deeply valued because they grant what everyone craves: recognition, respect, and honor. Epictetus knew this well. Once a slave, he lived at the bottom of society's hierarchy, stripped of wealth, status, and privilege. Yet even in chains, he never ceased to see himself as a rational being, equal in soul to any emperor. Later, as a teacher, he insisted that every person, from slave to Caesar, deserved to be treated with dignity. To value others was not flattery, it was truth. His students revered him, not because he sought admiration, but because he saw them clearly, honored their humanity, and taught them as equals. When you learn to value others, you transform relationships. Consider a leader who truly listens to their subordinates, who respects their ideas, who honors their labor. Such a leader is valued because they make others feel valued. Or think of a friend who pays attention when you speak, who does not belittle your struggles but takes them seriously. That friend becomes precious. Even in passing interactions, such as with strangers, the person who treats others with kindness and respect, regardless of status, is remembered far longer than the one who ignored or dismissed them. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor of Rome, wrote in his Meditations that he must never forget the humanity of those around him. He reminded himself daily that even the difficult people he encountered shared the same rational nature. He chose to treat them with patience and compassion, not contempt. His greatness lay not only in ruling, but in valuing others enough to see beyond titles and appearances. His soldiers respected him because he respected them. His people trusted him because he treated their struggles as real. This principle applies to the smallest details of life. Value the waiter who serves you by offering genuine gratitude. Value the co-worker who goes unnoticed by acknowledging their effort. Value your family members by giving them your full attention instead of half listening while distracted. Value even your opponents by engaging them with fairness rather than cruelty. Each act of valuing others plants a seed of trust and respect, and over time, these seeds grow into deep relationships that make you truly valued in return. The Stoics urged us to see ourselves as parts of one body. If the hand refuses to value the foot, the whole body suffers. In the same way, if we treat others as disposable, we weaken the fabric of life itself. But when we honor others, we strengthen the whole. People are not blind to this. They recognize and cherish those who lift others up instead of tearing them down. Valuing others does not mean agreeing with them on everything, nor does it mean tolerating injustice. The Stoics were clear. To honor someone's humanity does not mean approving of their errors. You can disagree firmly, even oppose someone's actions, while still acknowledging their dignity as a human being. This distinction is crucial. The one who argues without contempt, who corrects without humiliating, who stands firm without degrading, becomes respected even by adversaries. To live this way requires humility. You must set aside pride, which tempts you to see yourself as greater than others. You must resist the urge to dismiss those who seem beneath you in wealth, education, or influence. True worth is not measured in such externals, but in virtue, and virtue is available to all. When you treat others according to this truth, you embody wisdom. People will value you deeply when they see that you value them, not because you flatter or manipulate, but because you recognize their inherent worth. They will sense in your presence a rare quality, the ability to make others feel seen. And in a world where so many feel invisible, that quality is priceless. This is the final paradox of Stoicism. By valuing others without seeking return, you yourself become valued. By honoring the dignity of all, you elevate your own. By giving respect, you earn respect, not as a bargain, but as a natural consequence of living in harmony with truth. The one who values others becomes indispensable, not because they demand it, but because they reveal the light of humanity in everyone they encounter. So if you desire to be valued, begin by valuing those around you. See their struggles, acknowledge their efforts, honor their dignity. In doing so, you not only transform them, you transform yourself. And in the end, you will find that the surest path to being treasured is to treasure others first. We have walked through 7 strategies, each a stone laid on the path of becoming more valued in life. The journey began with self-discipline, the foundation of all worth, for without mastery over yourself, no one can rely on you. We then turned to speech, learning that the rarest words are the ones spoken with meaning, and that silence often holds more power than noise. We faced the storms of hardship, seeing how dignity in suffering transforms pain into testimony, making a person a pillar for others. We spoke of generosity, of giving without expectation, of living not as a merchant in relationships, but as a benefactor of the soul. We discovered the secret of inner calm, a stillness that steadies others when the world spins in chaos. We learned the strength of principles, of holding firm to virtue while others bend to opinion, becoming a light of consistency in a world of shifting shadows. Finally, we saw the paradox of value, that to be valued deeply, one must value others first, recognizing the dignity of every soul. These 7 strategies are not tricks or tactics to gain admiration. They are not tools of manipulation or shortcuts to popularity. They are ways of life rooted in Stoic philosophy, practices that shape the soul into something worthy of respect. And herein lies the great distinction. Being liked is a game of appearances, but being valued is the fruit of substance. Applause fades, but character endures. To live as a Stoic is to aim at character, not applause, and the result is a value that no crowd can give and no critic can take away. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that fame is nothing but noise and forgetfulness. The cheers of today are swallowed by tomorrow's silence. But virtue, self-control, justice, courage, wisdom, these remain. They engrave themselves not only in your own soul, but in the lives of those you touch. This is the kind of value that lasts, the kind that outlives you, the kind remembered in stories long after your name is gone. The world does not need more people chasing after being liked. It needs people who are willing to live with integrity, who will discipline themselves when it is easier to indulge, who will speak with weight when others chatter, who will endure with dignity when others collapse, who will give freely when others demand, who will remain calm when others panic, who will stand firm when others bow, and who will value others even when the world teaches selfishness. These are the people who are valued because they give value. You may be tempted to measure yourself by the recognition you receive, but the Stoic knows better. Do not waste your energy trying to prove your worth to those who cannot see it. Instead, live worthily, and in time, those who can see will recognize it. Even if they do not, your life will remain rich, because value is not something granted by others, but something cultivated within. If you become virtuous, you will already be valued by the most important witness of all, your own soul. So the choice stands before you. Will you chase the shallow applause of being liked, or will you pursue the deeper, harder, nobler path of being valued? The first ends in emptiness. The second leads to a life of substance, respect, and lasting worth. Waste no more time, as Marcus Aurelius warned, arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Live these 7 strategies, and in doing so, you will not need to demand value. It will follow you like a shadow, inevitable and enduring.